Have you ever noticed how certain people treat you differently the moment you stop being easy to control? But here's the twist. They don't just walk away when they lose control over you. No, they shift tactics. Suddenly, they start guilt-tripping you, twisting your words, spreading subtle rumors, anything to make you doubt yourself. It's not loud, it's not obvious, it's psychological, a quiet war for your mind. While you think you're simply living your life, they're planting seeds of self-doubt, hoping you'll shrink back into their grasp. Here's where Stoic philosophy comes in. True power isn't about controlling others. It's about refusing to be controlled by opinions, emotions, or manipulation. So ask yourself, are you truly free, or are you still reacting to their games without even realizing it? Adam was a man who walked his own path. He didn't bow to pressure, didn't play along with guilt, and never let manipulation guide his choices. At work, his boss couldn't intimidate him. Among friends, he stood firm. Even in family, he set boundaries. He thought his strength would earn him respect. But instead, people grew distant. Admiration turned to criticism. Confidence was called arrogance. Confused, Adam went to visit Mr. Carter, an old mentor known for his wisdom. "I don't get it," Adam said. "Why do people turn on me just because I won't be controlled?" Mr. Carter smiled and led him outside. In the yard were two horses, one tied to a post, calm and docile. The other roamed freely, alert and watchful. "Watch closely," Mr. Carter said. As he approached the tied horse, it stood still. When he neared the free horse, it stepped back, cautious and tense. "See the difference?" he said. "When people can tie you down, they feel safe, predictable, in control. But when you're free, truly free, they grow uneasy. Your independence threatens their illusion of power." Adam asked, "So what do?" "They don't try to free you," Mr. Carter replied. "They try to break you. They'll call you selfish, difficult, arrogant. They'll twist your strength into a flaw, not because you're wrong, but because your freedom reminds them of the prison they've accepted." That night, something clicked for Adam. They weren't turning on him because he was flawed. They turned on him because they couldn't use him. So he stopped explaining himself, stopped justifying his choices, stopped letting guilt steer his decisions. And in that silence, something powerful happened. The manipulators vanished, the weak-minded faded, and the strong, they stayed. Because real strength respects strength. Remember this, freedom isn't given, it's claimed. And once you claim it, the game changes. Stay with me until the end, because the last behavior is the most dangerous of all. And if you find value in this kind of content, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss a moment on your path to self-mastery. Let's begin. Number 1, they try to manipulate you. Let's talk about what really happens when people realize they can't control you anymore. Some people are fueled by control. They're not interested in mutual respect. They want dominance. They want to shape your decisions, influence your behavior, and bend your boundaries to suit their needs. But when they see that you're independent, that you won't fold, won't beg, won't dance to their tune, they don't always walk away. Instead, they shift their tactics. They swap overt control for subtle psychological games. This is where manipulation enters the picture. Rather than confront you directly, they try to get inside your head. They'll twist the narrative, use emotional pressure, and make you feel like the bad guy, all to regain their grip without appearing obvious. They'll say things like, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me?" Guilt, or "You're so good at this, I don't know what I'd do without you." Flattery, and if that doesn't work, they'll create fake urgency. "I really need this right now. You're my only hope." Or they'll paint themselves as the victim to make you feel responsible for their emotional state. But here's the truth. Manipulation isn't about love or connection. It's about control without accountability. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes your armor. Lao Tzu once said, "He who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still." True power isn't in bending others. It's in standing firmly within yourself. When someone tries to manipulate you, they're banking on one thing, your emotional reaction. guilt, doubt, fear. The second you feel it, they've got you. But when you remain calm, grounded, and unbothered, they lose their grip. Think of manipulation like a game of chess. Every move they make is calculated to provoke a reaction. A sigh here, a guilt trip there, a carefully chosen phrase meant to disarm you. They expect you to make a move, one that benefits them. But what if you didn't play? What if you simply observed the board, smiled, and refused to move your piece? They're left powerless. I remember a personal experience with someone who had mastered the art of turning everything to their advantage. One day they asked for a favor I wasn't comfortable doing. I politely declined. Instead of accepting my boundary, they responded with, "Wow, I thought we were closer than that." Instantly, that familiar wave of guilt came rushing in, the temptation to explain, to defend, to give in. But this time I caught myself. I looked at them, smiled, and calmly said, "I know what you're doing." Everything changed. Their expression shifted. They stammered, tried to laugh it off, but the manipulation had been exposed. That was the last time they tried it on me. Here's what I learned. Once you can name manipulation, it loses its power. So how do you deal with manipulators? First, recognize the signs. If someone is trying to make you feel guilty, pressured, or obligated, pause. Ask yourself, is this a genuine request, or am I being emotionally cornered? Second, stay calm and firm. Don't rise to their bait. Emotional neutrality disarms their strategy. And third, don't play the game. You don't owe long explanations. A simple no is often enough. In the end, manipulation only works if you react. The moment you stop feeling responsible for someone else's emotions, they lose control. Master yourself. Set your boundaries. And remember, your choices are yours alone. Number 2, they spread lies about you. Let's talk about one of the lowest, yet most common tactics people use when they realize they can't control you. They spread lies. When someone can't bend your will, when manipulation fails and influence fades, some don't walk away. They retaliate in the shadows. They twist your words, fabricate stories, and try to poison your reputation. Why? Because if they can't control you directly, they'll attempt to control how others see you. It's not about truth, it's about power. And they're hoping to win by turning people against you. But here's the harsh reality. False narratives are the tools of the weak. When someone doesn't have truth on their side, they reach for gossip, exaggeration, and character assassination. They want you off balance. They want you to chase their lies, to defend yourself so desperately that you lose your composure. Because the moment you do, they win. But Stoic philosophy offers a different path. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If you are unaffected by what is said, you have already won." Think of it like someone slinging mud at you. If you lash out, if you try to wrestle with them in the dirt, you only get messier. But if you stand still, let the mud dry, and calmly dust yourself off, you walk away clean. The mud remains with the person who threw it. That's how lies work. The more you try to scrub them off in public, the more you spread them. But if you stay calm, let your actions speak louder than their words, those lies eventually dry up and blow away. I remember a time when someone deliberately spread false rumors about me. They twisted events, painted a version of me that didn't reflect reality. And at first I wanted to fight back, to correct every detail, to tell my side. But then I paused, and I chose silence, not out of weakness, but out of strength. Instead of defending myself, I focused on living in truth. I stayed consistent. I showed people who I really was, not through words, but through actions. And slowly the truth began to shine through. The lies started to unravel. The person behind the rumors revealed their own character without me lifting a finger. Here's what I learned. Lies have short lifespans, but the truth is built to last. So how do you deal with this kind of attack? First, don't engage. The more you argue, the more attention you give the lie, and that's exactly what they want. Second, let your character do the talking. Over time, people will see through the stories. Truth is quiet, but it's consistent. And finally, remember this. When someone spreads lies, they're telling you more about themselves than about you. A person who lies is revealing their own insecurity, their own weakness. They're hoping the noise will distract from the truth. Don't let it. At the end of the day, false words hold no weight unless you give them energy. So stand tall, remain calm, and let time do its work. Because the one who lives in truth doesn't need to scream. They simply endure. And those who rely on lies, they always lose in the end. Number 3, they play the victim. Let's look at one of the most subtle yet highly manipulative tactics people use when they realize they can't control you. They play the victim. When someone's attempts to dominate, influence, or emotionally control you fall flat, they don't always confront you. Instead, they flip the narrative. Suddenly, they're the one who's been hurt. They become the wounded party, and you're cast as the villain in a script you didn't even know was being written. Why do they do this? Because if they can't control you, they'll try to control how others see you. Here's the truth. Playing the victim isn't about seeking justice. It's about avoiding accountability. These people twist the facts, exaggerate events, and conveniently leave out their own actions to make themselves look innocent or oppressed. It's not an honest cry for help. It's a strategy, a performance designed to win sympathy and recruit allies. And here's where it gets more dangerous. The more you try to defend yourself, explain your side, or expose their manipulation, the worse it gets. Now you look angry, defensive, aggressive, while they continue to look soft-spoken and wounded. It's like walking into a play halfway through and being told you're the villain. If you storm the stage and start yelling your truth, it only feeds the act. But if you stay in the audience, stay calm, and let the curtain fall, eventually the cracks in their performance start to show. This is exactly what Stoic wisdom teaches. Epictetus once said, "A wise man does not allow others to dictate his emotions." And that's the key, emotional self-control. The moment you let their performance pull you into a reaction, they win. But if you stay calm, emotionally neutral, and let truth take its course, you strip them of their power. I remember dealing with someone who had perfected this tactic. Every time they crossed a line, disrespected a boundary, or created conflict, and I finally addressed it, they immediately played the victim. They told others I was harsh, unkind, not the person they thought I was. And just like that, I was painted as the aggressor. At first, I felt the urge to set the record straight, to tell my side, to make everyone see the truth. But then I realized that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted me to get loud so they could look even smaller and more fragile. So I didn't play the part. I stayed silent. I held my peace. I let my consistency, my calm, and my character do the talking. And you know what happened? People started seeing through the act. Slowly, the image they built began to crack, because the truth always finds a way, especially when you're not forcing it. So how do you deal with someone who plays the victim? First, don't engage. Arguing only confirms their story and gives them the drama they crave. Second, let their behavior reveal them. People who lie, exaggerate, or pretend eventually slip up. And third, protect your energy. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You don't have to chase validation. Real ones will see you. At the end of the day, manipulators use victimhood as a weapon, but only if you give them a stage. The best move? Step off. Stay calm. Let truth take center stage, because in the end, no performance lasts forever. And when the act is over, it's your integrity that remains standing. If you found this helpful, hit like and subscribe, and keep standing strong in your truth. Number 4, they try to isolate you. Let's talk about one of the most calculated and subtle tactics manipulators use when they realize they can't control you. They try to isolate you. When direct influence fails, when they see you're thinking for yourself, setting boundaries and walking your own path, they shift their strategy. Instead of confronting you, they go behind your back. Quietly, strategically. They plant doubts, twist your words, spread subtle misinformation. Why? Because if they can't control you, they'll try to control how others see you. Their goal is simple: cut you off from your support system. If you feel alone, you're easier to pressure. If you doubt who's really in your corner, you start questioning everything, including yourself. Here's the truth. Isolation is not a random act, it's a weapon. People who thrive on control cannot tolerate your independence. And as long as you're surrounded by supportive, strong relationships, you're a threat to their agenda. So what do? They target the bonds around you. One quiet comment at a time. Think of it like this. In the wild, predators don't attack the entire pack. They isolate the weakest prey from the group first. Once it's alone, it's vulnerable. Manipulators are no different. They stir conflict. They whisper doubt. They play both sides. Not to protect you, but to separate you so you'll come crawling back, seeking comfort from the very person who orchestrated your isolation. But here's where Stoic wisdom gives us clarity. Seneca once said, "Associate only with those who improve you. Avoid those who would pull you down." That's the key. Stay close to people who challenge you to grow, who reflect your values, and who strengthen your sense of self. Because real relationships don't shatter over rumors, they endure them. I once dealt with someone who slowly tried to turn others against me. It started with subtle, almost harmless comments. "I don't know if you can really trust them." Then came exaggerated stories, twisted truths, things I never said or meant. At first I felt frustrated. I wanted to clear my name, to set the record straight. But then I realized that's what they wanted. They wanted me to panic, to react, to exhaust myself chasing validation. So instead, I did the opposite. I stayed grounded. I nurtured my authentic connections. I focused on showing up consistently, letting my values speak for themselves. And you know what? The people who truly knew me, they saw through the fog. The manipulators, they faded. And the ones who turned away, they were never meant to stay. So how do you handle someone who tries to isolate you? First, stay calm. The more you react, the more control you hand over. Second, protect and strengthen your real relationships. Time reveals truth, and loyalty isn't easily fooled. Third, don't chase the ones who doubt you. If they walk away over someone else's words, they were never on solid ground to begin with. At the end of the day, those who fear your independence will try to isolate you, but they can't break what's built on truth. Your freedom, your connections, and your integrity are your armor. So stand firm, stay connected, and remember, true bonds don't crumble under lies, they get stronger. Number 5, they challenge your confidence. Let's talk about a subtle yet deeply manipulative tactic that people use when they realize they can't control you. They start challenging your confidence. They won't attack you openly. They won't scream or confront. Instead, they whisper uncertainty into your mind. They make offhand comments. They question your decisions. They plant tiny seeds of doubt, not enough to be called out for criticism, but just enough to make you second-guess yourself. Why? Because if they can make you doubt your own judgment, they don't need to control you directly. Your hesitation becomes the leash. Here's the uncomfortable truth. People who subtly undermine your confidence aren't giving helpful advice. They're not offering wise counsel or constructive feedback. They're testing your self-belief. They want to become your point of reference, your checkpoint, your validator. Because the moment you start asking, "What do they think?" instead of, "What do I know?" they've regained influence. Think of it like this. Imagine you're walking across a solid bridge. It's well built. You've walked it before. But someone stands nearby, arms crossed, and says, "Are you sure that bridge is safe? It looks kind of unstable." At first, you brush it off, but as they repeat the concern, you start to slow down. Your legs get a little shaky, not because the bridge is flawed, but because your mind was shaken. That's exactly how confidence works. It's not always about facts. It's about how solid you feel inside. And manipulators know that if they can shake your confidence, they don't need to control your actions, you'll do it to yourself. But here's where Stoic wisdom offers clarity. Epictetus once said, "A person's worth is not measured by the approval of others." That's the key. Real confidence doesn't come from constant agreement. It doesn't grow by being validated. It comes from trusting yourself, knowing your reasons, and standing by your choices, even when others raise an eyebrow. I remember someone in my life who constantly questioned my decisions. Every choice I made, personal, professional, even minor things, was met with a skeptical look or a sly comment. "Are you sure that's the right move? That sounds kind of risky, doesn't it?" At first I'd explain. I'd go into detail, justify my choices, offer reasons, defend myself like I was in court. But the more I explained and the more they found to question. It wasn't advice. It was erosion. Then one day I stopped. They raised their usual doubts, and I simply said, "Yes, I'm sure." No explanation, no debate. And in that moment, the dynamic shifted. Because confidence doesn't argue, it stands still. So how do you deal with people who do this? First, trust your own mind. If your choices are grounded in reason and reflection, that's enough. Second, stop over-explaining. The more you justify yourself, the more ammunition you hand over. And finally, remember this. Their doubt is not your truth. Just because someone questions you doesn't mean you're wrong. Their skepticism may come from their own insecurity, jealousy, or fear, not from any real flaw in your decision. At the end of the day, your confidence is your power. People will challenge it, chip away at it, try to confuse it, but only if you let them. Stand tall, stay grounded, and never let someone else's voice be louder than your own inner knowing. Number 6, they provoke you emotionally. Let's talk about one of the oldest and most manipulative tactics in the book. Emotional provocation. When someone realizes they can't control you through reason, guilt, or subtle manipulation, they resort to a more primal approach. They push your buttons on purpose. They'll insult you, mock you, twist your words, or bring up your past mistakes. Not because they want a real conversation, but because they want to get a rise out of you. They want you to lose your composure. Why? Because once you explode, they win. You become the angry one, the irrational one, the person who can now be painted as the problem. And just like that, they claim the moral high ground. They provoke you, then play innocent. See, this is what I have to deal with. Here's the truth. This tactic is never about resolving conflict. It's about control. And emotional control is one of the hardest yet most important forms of self-mastery. Think of it like fire and wind. Your emotions are the flame. Their words, their provocations are the wind. The more you react, the more the fire flares up. But what happens when the wind meets no flame? When there's no reaction, the fire dies. That's why your calmness is your greatest weapon. When they can't provoke you, they lose all leverage. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes a powerful guide. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That's the key. When someone comes at you with anger or manipulation, the real strength is in not becoming like them. You don't match their chaos with more chaos. You meet it with poise. I remember a time someone tried to bait me into an argument. They threw out sharp comments, exaggerated stories, and even brought up things from years ago, anything to spark a fire. I could feel the tension rise, the urge to defend myself, but instead of reacting, I paused, smiled, and said, "Interesting perspective." That was it. No argument, no defense, no emotional explosion, and they froze. Because they weren't prepared for stillness. They had come for a battle, but I didn't show up. That moment taught me something vital. Staying calm isn't weakness, it's control. It's refusing to hand your emotions over to someone who wants to misuse them. So how do you deal with emotional provocateurs? First, recognize the trap. If someone is trying to trigger you, pause and ask, is this a real conversation or just bait? Second, regulate your response. Take a deep breath. Count to 5. Whatever you do, don't respond from a place of emotion. Third, walk away when needed. Some arguments aren't worth winning. Some battles aren't worth fighting. In fact, your silence often says more than words ever could. At the end of the day, your emotions belong to you. When someone tries to hijack them for their own advantage, you don't need to fight. You need to remain grounded. Let them spin. Let them hurl words and twist stories. Because the strongest person in the room is the one who doesn't flinch, doesn't retaliate, the one who refuses to be controlled. Stay calm, stay centered, and remember the storm always passes. Let them rage. You stay still. Number 7, they copy you. Let's talk about a tactic that's equal parts frustrating and revealing. They copy you. At first, it might feel like a coincidence. You take a bold step. They follow with something eerily similar. You voice an original idea. They echo it back, claiming it as their own. You blaze a trail, and suddenly they're trying to walk it like it was theirs all along. Over time, it becomes clear. They're not competing anymore. They're imitating. And here's the truth. When people realize they can't outdo you, they try to become you. Instead of forging their own path, they mimic yours, hoping that by copying your moves, they can steal a slice of your success. But there's one thing they always forget. You can copy someone's steps, but you can't copy their essence. No matter how closely they follow, they'll always be a beat behind. Imitation might fool others for a moment, but it never holds up over time. Think of it like the difference between the sun and a shadow. The sun shines from within. It generates its own power. The shadow, it can only move when the light does. Never ahead, always after. That's what copying really is. A lifeless echo of something authentic. No matter how much they try to sound like you, dress like you, or talk like you, they can never be you. And this is where Stoic wisdom offers clarity. Seneca once said, "Character, not imitation, defines a person." That's the heart of it. True power isn't in doing something cool or clever once. It's in living from who you are. They can mimic your moves, they can borrow your words, but they can't replicate your mind, your lived experience, or your inner truth. I remember someone who used to copy nearly everything I did. Every project I started, they suddenly had a similar one. Every shift I made in my style, they mirrored it within weeks. At first, it felt like theft. It felt personal. But then I noticed something. They never led. They always followed. They were waiting for me to make the next move, because they had no direction of their own. So one day, I changed everything. I shifted my path, tried something entirely new, and they froze. They had no script to follow. That's when it hit me. Imitation is proof that you're ahead. So how do you deal with people like this? First, stop wasting energy on them. The fact that they're copying you says more about their insecurity than your success. Second, keep evolving. The more you grow, the harder it becomes for them to keep up, because growth isn't about doing more of the same, it's about becoming more of who you really are. And finally, understand this. Imitation isn't flattery. It's fear dressed up as admiration. They don't copy you because they admire you. They copy you because they don't know how to be themselves. At the end of the day, copies fade, fads disappear, echoes get lost, but originality, that lasts forever. So don't dim your light to make someone else comfortable. Don't slow down so they can catch up. Keep leading, keep shining, and let the imitators scramble in your shadow, because no one can replace what was never theirs to begin with. Number 8, they wait for you to fail. Let's talk about a hard truth that's often hiding in plain sight. Not everyone who smiles at you is rooting for you. Some people don't support you, they just pretend to. They nod when you share your dreams. They say, "I'm happy for you." They might even applaud when you win a little. But deep down, they're not celebrating your growth. They're counting down to your fall. Because your success, it threatens them. It reminds them of what they're not doing, of how far they've drifted from their own ambition. So if they can't rise with you, they'd rather see you stumble. They don't want you to lose because you failed. They want you to lose because you dared to try. Here's the truth. Some people aren't cheering. They're keeping score. They're waiting for you to slip. Not out of concern, but because your failure would validate their doubts, their fears, and their own inaction. And when you hit a bump, and you will because we all do, they'll be the first to lean in and whisper, "I knew it." Not because they knew the journey was hard, but because they were hoping you'd prove them right. But this is where they underestimate you. Because real success isn't built on shallow applause. It's not dependent on validation. It's built on roots. Think of yourself like a tree in a storm. The storm is loud, chaotic. It tries to shake everything. But a tree with deep roots doesn't break. It doesn't need the storm to pass to stand tall. And those people, the ones waiting to see you fall, they're just wind. Noisy, temporary, powerless. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Epictetus once said, Do not waste energy on those who hope for your downfall. Focus instead on your growth. That's it right there. Your focus shouldn't be on proving them wrong. It should be on becoming undeniably right within yourself. I remember someone in my circle who always wore the mask of support. Every time I shared an idea, they'd smile, but then slip in little jabs. "Are you sure that'll work?" "Sounds risky." "Well, I mean, good luck." I brushed it off, gave them the benefit of the doubt. But when I hit a rough patch, their response was instant. They didn't offer support. They offered confirmation. "See? I told you this wasn't going to be easy." That's when it hit me. They were never cheering. They were waiting. So I stopped explaining. I stopped trying to convert doubt into belief. I poured all that energy back into my craft, my process, my journey. And when I finally rose again, their silence said more than their fake encouragement ever did. So how do you handle people like this? First, learn to recognize the signs. If they only show up when you struggle but disappear when you win, that's not a supporter, that's a spectator, hoping to see you fall. Second, stop seeking their validation. Your success isn't a performance for their approval, it's a process for your evolution. And finally, let your life speak for itself. Let your consistency, your growth, and your peace be the loudest answer to their quiet resentment. At the end of the day, some people wait for your failure like it's entertainment. Don't give them the show. Give them the silence of your success. Keep rising. Keep building. Keep proving, not them, but yourself right. And when you blast off, let them watch from the same spot they stayed in while you were doing the work.